Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Pixelated Perfect podcast. Today, I have with me Dinorath, and she's going to let me know if I pronounced it correctly or tell me how to pronounce it. But super excited to have her on the podcast. She is a product designer at Open Earth Foundation. She actually recently took on a new job. So super excited to dive into some of those questions that some of you may have about that transition of transitioning to a new job. And she also, one of the things that she really loves is that she believes in empathy and focusing on the people. So I also think that's some great topics we can dive into as a UX designer side of things. So thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you. Thank you to invite me.
Of course. Okay, first things first, pronounce your name so I can make sure that I'm saying it correctly again.
Yeah, I know, and it's very difficult. It happened a lot. So it's Dinorath, but everyone calls me Dino. And if you want to say Dino is fine.
Perfect. I like Dino. I feel like that's easier for me. So awesome. So excited to have you. So I am going to ask you, the prompt that I start with everyone is, when did design come into your life?
Well, I think from a very young age, I was very artistic. When I was 4 years old, I started dancing like ballet, flamenco, tap, and other rhythms. I think I was very creative in that particular part. In some part of my youngest age, I start to make collage because I want to be in that time. I want to be an architect, so I make collage of like this magazine related of buildings and all these stuff, and like have the idea to create my buildings and my creation. So then like when the times goes on,
when you were younger,
I study architecture.
Okay.
When I study architecture, I learned a lot about design, about structures, and also history. So that was my first contact in the design have a background there, because it's important to take in consideration the history, like the concept, also the quality of the life, like to design a space, and in this space, like people, have a lot of things to take in consideration to create an architecture design. So I'm also a research there. That was my first contact in design. Then I decided I'm from Venezuela. I came to Argentina 5 years ago. I decided to make a transition to this graphic designer. And when I study graphic designer, I have a small course related of UX UI design. Then when I was discovered this new term in my life, I decided to go deep in the discipline. So I decided to start a course related of UX UI design, and then I found a job in an agency related of UX UI designer, and that's basically my career path.
My
journey.
No, that's great. Okay, I have a few questions kind of going back. So my first question is, why architecture? What was it about architecture? Because you said you started off artistic and you kind of moved in collage and you got into architecture. So what was it about architecture that was so attractive to you?
Yeah, I think was part of my parents, because my dad works in that time as a civil engineer. So he wants me to be the architect of his company. So he bought me the magazine of buildings, and then I started to make the collage. So I think that was the first initiative dream I have.
Yeah.
But
It's like your
then
dad's
when
like, this is what you should do. This is how you can
yeah,
help us. And you're like,
exactly.
yeah, let's do it. I love that. That's great.
Yeah, exactly. I think some of parts I really like of architecture, but I think like I don't see myself like working as architect, but I really enjoy the part of the design and also to understand how this happened. And also the most I like to study architecture is related about the architecture history, like how cities build and all these things. That was like the things I first loved.
Yeah, I think that's great. My major was graphic design in college, but my minor was art history. And I always have been fascinated with, I mean, architecture, of course, like buildings, paintings, like everything involved in like how it got started. So I totally understand. I think there's like a love of looking at the past and recognizing the past to be able to design for the future.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I totally agree. I get like really excited about seeing some of the history and art around. So when you were studying history, was it architecture, or was it also kind of like paintings and other types of creative outlets?
Well, it's more related about architect, but
Right.
to understand the architect is like all the human past, all the
Yes.
human journey. And then when I decide to switch to graphic designer, I study like art history, like Da Vinci, like
Yes.
all the paint. Yeah.
Yes. Well, perfect. So were you, when you made that transition from an architect major to a graphic design major, was that in Venezuela, or when you came to Argentina, that's when you made that transition?
When I came to Argentina.
Okay.
Here I finished, like I can use some studies I made of architecture to complete graphic designer, but yeah, I made it here in Argentina.
Okay, so you're like, clean break. I am now going to like follow this passion of graphic design, kind of leaving Venezuela, telling your dad, sorry, dad, I'm gonna
exactly
follow graphic design. Were your parents kind of supportive of this transition from architecture to graphic design?
Well, I think my mother, yes, absolutely. My father, at the first time, no.
Yes.
A big no, I think. But then, like now, he's like okay with my decision, and also he's proud of me. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Are your parents still in Venezuela? Are they also in Argentina?
No, they are still in Venezuela.
Okay. So your dad's like, okay, I get it. This is what she's gonna do.
Yeah.
He's accepted it, and now he's very happy for this direction. I love that. So one question I have for you, which we kind of talked a little bit about, is what are the similarities of maybe studying architecture and moving to design? What was it about? Where do you find like that architecture and design collide and you kind of are doing similar things?
I think the mindset, like obviously the like the user or the target is different because it's a different space, a different it's different.
Yeah.
But I think the mindset of design, like in architecture, is the same mindset. You have a concept, and the concept needs to solve a problem. With like solving the problem, you make the design. I think it's the same journey of any kind of design.
Totally. No, I agree. I think especially relevant when you move into the UX field is like you really are building for a specific type of person, whether it's a building, residential, commercial. You have to understand who those users are, and that's exactly what we do on the UX side of things.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so let's talk about this. You kind of first discovering UI UX. You said it was like a little course in school, and then once you learned about it, you took another course and you dove deeper into it.
Yeah, I go deeper in UX UI design, like all these new books, these new terms,
yes,
this new like design thinking, or these new like frameworks they have, or what's new. And Also, it was a lot of information. I'm still learning. I think, yeah, all the weeks we have a new framework, or we have a new way to do, or a new like tools like ChatGPT or something to integrate on our way to work. So yeah, that's exciting too, because it's not like boring, I guess.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that us as designers, things are constantly shifting and changing. Like that's what's kind of exciting about our field is like, I mean, when I studied graphic design and graduated, like UX wasn't a thing. Like it obviously was a thing, but it didn't have that title of like UX. Like you were like, oh, I'm a web designer or something like that. And you can see like how far it's come. And it's so interesting to think of like, look how far it's come in such a short period of time. And like all the new things are going to come out. Like, yeah, AI, GPT, it's like really fascinating. It's a fascinating space to be in because of the rapid change, but it also means that we have to stay on our toes and constantly feel like we're learning and gathering all of the new things always.
Yeah, always.
Always like what's new with Figma, what is the best new plugin? Like, oh my gosh, it's every day is something new. For sure. So what would you tell designers that are looking to make that transition from graphic design to UX design? Maybe what you learned from the course or what you would suggest they look for in a course?
Yeah, I think like two things are the main things, I guess. One is like to be curious, like to be autonomous, to study, like search about new frameworks, search about like books, also listen a podcast. I think like there is always information there, and also are a lot of people like trying to bring the conversation and have more knowledge and share that knowledge. I think that's very useful to be curious. And the second is like to leave the ego. I think in our discipline, the designer, maybe, I don't know, but I think some architects and designers I know maybe have that ego, like, what I do is perfect or something, or close to be perfect.
Definitely.
And I think in UX UI, you don't have the reason, and the user have the last word. So I think like to leave that ego, focus on solve the problem, and also to solve the user problem is the big thing.
I think that was very well said. I really love how you framed it. And yes, I think it's not about you, the designer, at all. Like you're honestly just like a tool or in this cycle of being able to understand the users and help your customers build products that are aligned with your users' goals. Right. So it's like ego at the door, and also using data and research to have to explain why you're choosing these designs. Like you can always back up, if you always have something to back up the reason you chose that and how it's going to benefit that designer, that's obviously like going to go a long way. And that's really where we come in as those experts.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's very important to, maybe, like to have you have the data, or you have like, you can make a user interview, but I think like at the end, like if you launch something and the users don't like, or users can finish the task, there is a problem. So we need to solve it, and you need to work on that.
Yes, and there's like all those memes and everything going around of like you watching users use your product for the first time, and it's like they do everything like completely opposite of what you would have ever predicted. And you don't know why.
And then you see like you can leave your ego.
You have to. I mean, you can say the user is dumb all you want, but if they continuously are not able to use the product, then it's obviously not. It's not them, it's you.
Yeah, that happens.
That definitely is a big ego drop. I don't know how to phrase it. Yeah, your ego has to be gone, because there's no amount of defending your work that's going to be a reason to keep that design if the user doesn't understand it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm going to put you on the spot. You said that be curious is a recommendation for UX, and I love that. Totally agree. I think it also goes really well with no ego. You said that you you should always be searching for frameworks, books, listening to podcasts. Do you have any books or podcasts that you would recommend that are your favorites?
Yeah, well, I think UX Teen of One. It's a very useful and also common book. But I think I start working in first agency, like small agency, and then in startups. And I think that's really helps me because sometimes I don't have a big team. I think it's a really good book to start. Also, if you are in a startup. The second, I think I listen a podcast, UXBS. It's an Spanish podcast, unfortunately, but it's really good because he explained a lot of they have many episodes, so he talked about their experience and also their work and how he deal with some things in his job. So it's very interesting to hear more related of the things he's doing. I learned a lot of this podcast. And also he made interviews with other product designers or devs or designers in general. So I like that.
No, that's a great recommendation. And we have quite a few Spanish speakers that listen to the podcast. So I think that's a great recommendation. We'll definitely add that to the explanation of this podcast so people can check out the book, the podcast. Thank you for those resources. I think that's great.
Great.
Okay, so let's move into jumping into your first job. So went to school, graphic design, went to some UX UI courses, kind of got knowledge, and you're like, okay, this is it. This is where I want to be. How did you go about getting that first job?
I think it was difficult because it was in that time that it's in a new country, new person, new market. So I think it was very difficult. But I found a job here in Argentina in an agency. It was a very small agency, so they are looking to a designer quickly, and also he likes my portfolio, so I think that's a very good thing, to have a portfolio. In that time, my focus was first in UI design because it was more related to graphic design. So I think that helped me a lot, the graphic design and all this part of the portfolio.
Yeah.
I think it was a very good experience, but I know it's difficult now. The market is difficult too. So I think the most important is to be patient and also apply to all the jobs you find and you think you match to the job.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great advice. I think it's this is probably not what designers want to hear, but it is a numbers game. Not always, but I think the more you apply, obviously the more interviews and the more you'll be able to find that perfect fit. So it is definitely be patient and just keep sending out your portfolio.
Yeah, I think it's difficult.
Yes.
Because maybe you have someone reject you and you can it's sad, or maybe you can feel not well, but there is the opportunity, and also in these industries we need more designers always. So you have to apply and also improve your portfolio, ask for feedback in interviews. So the feedback is also a good way to improve your profile.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yes. I think that also is kind of going back to that ego is put your portfolio out there, get feedback, update it, understand what you can do differently.
Specifically for the portfolio, I think I asked feedback in some rejections I had, and yeah, it helped me a lot to improve my portfolio. Like maybe more not about the designs, more about the storytelling, or you are not showing like the result of the product, and that's very useful to the companies. Maybe your portfolio, like the projects you have is not related to the companies. So if you apply to a financial application or financial company, it's better if you have like maybe side projects, but yeah, related to finance.
It's almost like common sense, like we know that, like, oh, obviously you
Yeah.
should be applying, but we don't do that. And so I'm glad you pointed that out, because yes, it's kind of obvious, but like really think about what you have in your portfolio, because I think a lot of designers are like, oh, I'm so fascinated with crypto. We use finance as an example, crypto. And like, they like the idea and they've done work that looks good, but never in the crypto space. And they're trying to get jobs in crypto. And it's like, hey, crypto's complex. I actually had a conversation with one of the designers on my team that comes from the crypto background. And it's definitely like a whole other industry. So if you have no design experience in there, most likely you're not going to get in. So what can you do?
Yeah.
A test project, or explain how you know more about crypto, put it into your portfolio in whatever capacity, because just showing like, oh, I did a website for a beauty company is not going to get you a job in the crypto space.
Yeah, exactly. And also other things I found like very useful to grow as a professional is like to get mentorship. There is a platform the name is ADP List.
Yes.
And it's very useful because they have mentors that give mentorship free. Yeah, they are awesome. Like I take like 3 in all my process, and helps me a lot to improve my portfolio, to improve like my applications, to improve my designs. Like, yeah. That's very useful.
Great advice. We actually have had quite a few ADP List design mentors on the podcast who have given great advice to designers that are looking.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's such a great resource because it's free. There's no like exchange of anything, right? It's just like great designers that want to help other designers, and it comes from such a good place. And I feel like everyone just benefits so much from it. So I'm glad you said that. Definitely a great resource. 1000%. Okay, so let's dive back into this journey where you have your first job at a small agency focusing mostly on the UI side. What was that like, getting your first gig, and how were you able to like actually start working in like an agency world?
Well, I think wow, that experience was very like, if I go to the back, I made like a lot of projects. I was like a printer. Project 1, project 2, project 3. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a lot of role there. Well, I like what I did there, it was first I made a lot of like UI part, not related to US. And what I tried to do is like to integrate things about UX in my work. Like, well, what happened is we do a benchmark first. Like that was the first thing. Okay, well, let's do a benchmark. And then, well, if we show the user flow and then we tested the user flow, and if we have this meeting with the dev, is this functional? Okay, that's great. And also the dev was happy to have that and participate in the project. Then I try another tool, like, well, if we have a new customer and they have a big idea and we don't have idea of the project, like, well, if we like interview some people related, and if we ask to the customer, like, if they have contact with the users they want to implement this application. So yeah, I think was like proactively try to encourage the thing that we don't need only to have the screens in UI. We need to maybe understand, and also that helps to like bring the project more useful and also more accurate I think, with the idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was my experience in that agency, like how we can do this like more user focus. Yeah, then I start in another agency called Thinking. They have they have a bigger team than in my previous agency. They have a team leader, so he helps me a lot to formalize my UI skills, because he'll teach me about, well, if we do design system, if we use components and we use libraries, this is better with the communication with the devs. Yeah, I think I learn always. I try to learn
That's great.
of my job. So yeah, then I participate in projects like, I think I was more like, well, now I know UI better, and I implement functions of UX. And then I start like a project more like end-to-end related of management subscription. Was a big project I had, and that was my first project that I made alone, end-to-end, and use like all the things I learned in the course, and also the things I learned in all my process.
That's great.
Yeah,
so
I think that was my experience in agencies.
Yeah. So this big end-to-end project, was this in the second agency you were in, or this was like a whole separate project?
In the agency.
Okay. That's awesome. Yeah. So you like felt like you got all the skills necessary and you were able to kind of dive into end-to-end. In this first end-to-end project, what were some of the surprising moments that you weren't expecting? Like, what were some things that maybe came about that you were like, oh, that's not what I thought was part of the process? Because I think what's really interesting is like, we have this ideal UX UI process. And that's not real life. It never is. It never is. So what happened in this first end-to-end where you're like, oh, wait, I can't always follow the process exactly how I would like to?
Yeah, I think like they have a platform. So the idea was to redesign the platform. So, and also implement a new dashboard. So that was the idea. Yeah, I think the things I learned is like, we made first user testing of the current platform. So we discovered things that doesn't work in the platform. So yeah, that was the first impress. Like we don't make like interviews first, we made testing first. Then for the new dashboard, it was a new functionality, more analytics dashboard, because they don't have. So that was another process, and also another project inside the whole redesign, and they need the project needs other other things to do.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that was my impress. Like you have to adapt to the project and the needs. And one thing helps me a lot is like in one of my course, because I always learn, they have like a framework when you put all the things you know about the project, all the things you don't know about the projects, and the things you can make to have clarity on the things you don't know about the project. So like to visualize those things helps me a lot to now currently in the projects to, well, in this project, we know that this word and this word, but like maybe this flow doesn't work. In this project, we don't know anything about the user, so we need to make a discovery process first. So yeah, I think that was my learnings there.
Yeah, that's a great learning. And I love that framework too. And I think I think we're such visual people. So like taking any of these concepts and like actually like writing them out, like you said, like, what do I know? What don't I know? What can I learn is like really helpful. What is your advice to designers, maybe more junior designers that are still learning this skill, on how to talk to stakeholders and how to convince them to do a round of user testing, or that you feel strongly this step shouldn't be skipped because of the importance of it and the overall objective of the project?
Yeah, well, there are things that I think user experience designers mention a lot, but it's about the cost. About the cost, like make changes in the process can cost. Like first, maybe make changes in a discovery step is more cheap than make it when the application is already launched. So like to show that cost for the company, and it's very useful to explain the importance that interviews can have. So yeah, I think like when I was in my first job, I think my first approach was, well, maybe if I show this in for example, these user flows can help the devs. So the devs was interesting to have the user flow because they can make the backend requirements first, and also like have the project more quickly. So yeah, I think like you have to be proactive and yeah, try to balance the business need and try to balance the user needs. And with all these both things in the conversation, you can have a better conversation with the stakeholder because you can talk in the same language.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that.
Amazing. That's amazing advice. And that's amazing advice for your level of designer, because I feel like a lot of designers don't know the business side of things, and that's something that's really hard for them to grasp. So I love that you said that. And for designers that are getting started or are in their first few years of the UX industry, how can they learn more about business, or how did you learn more about the business side?
Well, I think curiosity, and also learn about the industry. What happened? Well, now I'm in a different industry than my last job. My last job was about logistics side. So first I focus on how logistic works and how this company works. So yeah, like first know about the business, and then you can start the conversation. So yeah, what I did is to make, like, for example, in my previous job, like to have one-on-ones to all the team, so I can learn their perspective, and also like make all the questions you have about, like in that time, about the logistic. I didn't know any about logistic, and all the process is all manual. It's very difficult, but yeah, I think like you need to make all the questions you need, so that helps you to understand the business, yeah, the necessity of the business, and then you can start like talk the same language to your stakeholders.
Yes. Okay, that's great advice. I think that what's great about design is that we can literally jump into so many different industries and learn so much. So obviously being curious is a super important part of being a designer. But then we get to learn about things like logistics. Like maybe we thought we would never be able to learn about logistics. Exactly. And there we are. And trying to make the process better, which is super exciting.
Exactly. I'm in that process right now. So
yes, I know. And I want to get there. I want to make sure we have time for that. So we kind of left off where you had your first end-to-end project at this agency. You had a great leadership team that really helped you learn your UI skills. And then we just talked about this kind of logistics. So what was that transition from an agency to, was this a startup, the logistics company?
Yeah, this was a startup. It's a startup. Yeah, well, what happened is in the agency, I have like projects like you start with the project and the project ends and they continue like separately of the agency. So in that times, I want to be in a product, like in a specific product, and also like try to learn about the evaluation of the product results. So yeah, I decided to make the transitions to a product. I find a job in this startups related of logistics. Was my first job in English, like completely in English. So that was a very good, very challenge.
Yeah, I mean,
For
it
that
forces
side.
you. You had to. You didn't have a choice. That's
Yeah,
great.
exactly. I still learning, like improving my English.
Your
So
English is
sorry for
great. Your English is great.
for the listeners. So yeah, I made the transition. I was very good for me, because now, like, I implement things, changes, like for example, redesign all the booking section platform, or all the search to a quote of the platform, and see the results, like quantitative, and like using Google Analytics. And we in that time I use Mixpanel. So that was very, like, I think I love with the analytics, because it's like you see the numbers, right?
Yes.
So yeah, now I want to grow on that part, like continue growing, because of course I'm not the expert. I'm still learning. So yeah, but I think that was the things I love of my experience in that startups. Like my first yeah, the first time I see numbers, like, oh my
Yeah.
God, this really helps the sign-ups, or helps the flow, or people, like we have this number of people like book in the platform, increase or decrease. So yeah, that was awesome.
That's great. I think analytics are such a big part of the UX process, and it's great because we can benchmark. We can essentially say, hey, this is what it
Yeah,
was. And then after the design, here's what it is. And then you're also, how you spoke about costs, like what is the cost of business? Like if they can see how many new signups because of
yeah,
what you did, what the design team did, that's like
yeah,
huge. So that's super
yeah,
exciting.
it's huge.
Yeah. And I love that you were able to kind of experience that in your last company. I'm sure you'll take it with you. It sounds like that's something you want to continue to grow.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Very cool. So how long were you at this logistics company, and what was that transition into where you are now?
Well, I been in the startup about logistics in 1 year and a half. So yeah, that was my experience. And then, like, the last 2 weeks, I start a new job, and it's about like completely different industry. It's climate tech industry. So it's a lot of terms that I never heard. So yeah, I'm transitioning right now the the change. So well, I think what the reason I made the change, because it's the mission of the company, like to help the world. And yeah, basically that's like, I don't know, I like that, and they take my heart. So yeah.
No,
I
I think
enjoy
that's
to
great. I
learn.
think us designers, while we learn about a ton of different things like logistics or whatever, it is always really great to be able to work for a company that like you feel like their mission is aligned with your mission, or it's a do good type
Yeah,
of company that always
yeah, like you feel like you are doing something, so
yeah,
something bigger than you. So
I like that. Yes.
yeah, I like that.
So what has this transition been like when you came into the company 2 weeks ago? Was there like a structure for that they gave you of like how you can kind of get all this knowledge, get up to speed, or is this kind of something you've been creating yourself of how to get all the information you need to?
Well, no, they fortunately they have an onboarding process, so
Perfect.
that was very useful too. Well, I'm continually working on that, but it's very useful to know about the business, know about the company, know about the mission, know about all the terms they have, and know about all the things about the platform. So yeah, I'm working on that, and also talking with my coworkers, with my teammates. So yeah, and in that part of the transition.
So is there already a design team there, or are you the sole designer?
No, there are other designer.
Okay.
Yeah, have like a product team, like product owner, director of product. So yeah, I'm not alone. It's a small team, but I'm not alone.
Yes. So what advice would you give to designers that are kind of jumping into a new company, or because you're so into it right now? Like you talked about one-on-ones earlier and just now, and I think that's great advice, is like schedule one-on-ones with as many people as possible. Are there any other like tidbits or anything else that you could recommend for someone making a transition?
Yeah, I think schedule one-on-ones, it's a good one, because you can meet your teammates and also like have this bonding with the people. The second one is like make all the questions you have, like, because the first month is the right time to make all the questions. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask things, like maybe it's a dumb thing for you, but it's not. So yeah, I think ask anything.
Yes, that's great advice. Because if you get like 3 months down the road and there's like a term you don't know and you have like been working on it but you never asked, then it's like weird to ask then, right? So like
exactly.
ask everything. Yes.
Ask everything. I think the last thing is like, well, I'm struggling with that right now, but be patient. Like, yeah, you don't have to know everything right now, so be patient. I struggle with that, to be honest, because I want to like go fast, and yeah, but yeah, I think you have your time to understand the things, and this is the time to understand all the product and all the team and all the business. So it's a time.
No, I think that's great advice. I think that no one's expecting you to all of a sudden have all of this knowledge. It's like they want you to take this time and learn and understand. And that's what this first month or longer, depending on the complexity, that's like what
for me maybe it's difficult, because I want to feel like useful.
Yes.
But the reality is not like it takes time. So
yes. Yeah, no, that's really great advice, because I'm the same way. I'm like, okay, I'm ready, like give it to me, I'm gonna dive in.
Yeah.
Like, which sometimes is great, sometimes it does make sense. There are instances where, hey, just go for it and see what happens, but also like trust the process that your team has set out for you. And that's what they want you to kind of follow. So yeah, no, that makes sense. I'm excited for you. This is a super interesting world you're now discovering, and it sounds really exciting.
Thank you.
So my last question to you is, where do you see yourself going? Like, where do you want to be in 5 years, or what type of what are new things that you want to discover in the design space?
Well, that's a difficult question.
Yes, it is.
And because I think that the words like change like fast.
Yes.
So I don't know, but yeah, I want to continue growing as a professional, like get more seniority. I want to maybe sometimes in the future, like have a team and lead a team. I would like to have that experience. Yeah, I think now I want to be a sponge. And learn a lot. And yeah, maybe in the future, like maybe lead a team, or also like understand more about AIs and all this new Web3, because I think it's a future. So yeah, I like that.
Yes, I feel like you definitely fit into this designer mindset. It's like learn, grow, be a sponge, like pick up everything new. I think that's amazing. And I
also because I don't have like a lot of years in the industry, so yeah, I think I'm in that in that side of the journey.
Definitely. Like there's so much more. It's like, I say this on the podcast all the time. So if people listen to it, they're probably tired of me saying this, but like the more experienced I get in the design space, the more I realize I don't know. There's always so much more to learn, no matter what stage you are, because like we talked about at the beginning, this industry is constantly shifting and changing. And there's just so many frameworks and so many books and so many new processes to like absorb and understand and see if it's helpful. So like it's fascinating. Like I think that's kind of what's great about this industry is you're always growing and learning. Always. You are never knowing exactly where things are going or what's next or what you can discover tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for hopping on this podcast. I really enjoyed kind of learning about your career and all of this advice you're giving to designers that are kind of coming into the industry and getting started in design. So I think there's a lot of really great tidbits. So I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me.
No, I really appreciate the invitation. So yeah, it's very like nice to be in a podcast. My first podcast, to be honest.
Yay! And you'll continue to do more, I'm sure. Well, yeah, we are looking forward to following along on your journey. So we will definitely stay in touch and see how things go after week 2.
Yeah, sure. After week 2. Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And we will chat soon.
Thank you.